Hello, I know it's been a while since some of you have looked at math. Today we are going to review how to solve equations. So the first thing we're going to look at is a little bit of vocabulary that I'm going to be using throughout this. We're going to start with a variable. Do you remember what a variable is? That's right, a variable is a number that is represented by a letter. Or you can say it's a letter that represents a number. It's a letter that you put in an equation in place of a number. Then we are going to look at constant. Do you remember what a constant is? If you're having a little trouble, think about what it means in science class because it's really similar. A constant is a number that doesn't change. So it stays the same, meaning that there's no variable with it. Then we're going to look at a coefficient. Do you remember what a coefficient is? Coefficient is a number that's in front of your variable. Then last up here for vocabulary, we're going to look at distribution. So what do you have to have when you are looking at distribution? That's right, you have to have parentheses. So what do you do when you distribute? That's right, you multiply. And you multiply across those parentheses. So you multiply what is outside the parentheses by everything inside the parentheses. And sorry if my spelling is off. I'm not a perfect speller. So again, distribution is where you multiply what's outside the parentheses. Typically in this class it's just going to be a number with potentially a positive or a negative sign, and to multiply it into everything that's inside of the parentheses and making sure that you're paying attention to the signs. So our first equation, x plus 7 equals 10. Now I know some of you learned to draw a line down this equal sign, you can. You don't have to. If it helps you to keep yourself organized, you can draw that line, because what you do on one side of that line, you have to do the same thing on the other. So again, x plus 7 equals 10. So we have x plus 7 grouped together. That means we need to move that 7 to the other side using the opposite operation. So what's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. So we're going to subtract that 7 from 7 as well as from that 10. So we have x equals 10 minus 7 is 3. So that one, x equals 3. Next one, again, solving the equation, x minus 5 equals 3. Again, if you need to draw that line, go ahead and draw it. And again, we have something with the x minus 5. So we need to move that 5 to the other side of the equation. And we're going to use the opposite addition of subtraction, which is addition. So we're going to add that 5 to both sides. Okay, and negative 5 plus 5 is 0. And 3 plus 5 is 8. So we have x equals 8. On the next one, again, draw your line through the equal sign if you need to keep track. We have 2x equals 8. So we have 2x. So what's happening with that 2 and the x? It's being multiplied. And what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we're going to divide by 2. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. You can put 1x here. I'm not going to because that's extra. So we have x equals, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our answer there is x equals 4. Then our last one for this row, we have x divided by 4 equals 3. Again, put your line through the middle if you need to. And we have division here. Fractions mean division. And what is the opposite of division? Multiplication. So where you're going to multiply by what's in our denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. Okay, so 4 times a division of 4, or 4 times 1/4 is 1. So that's just x, or 1x, but I'm just going to put x because I don't need the 1 in front. And 3 times 4 is 12. So we have x equals 12. our next equation, we have 3x plus 7 equals 16. Again, if you need to put down the line down the middle, go ahead and put that line. And then we have 3x plus 7 equals 16. So we have several things on the same side of this x. We have the 3 in front of the x, the coefficient of x, and we have 7, a constant. So we need to move these 7 first. Okay, we're not going to touch that 3 until later. We are going to move that 7 first. And we have a positive 7 because that plus sign goes with the 7. So what is the opposite of a positive 7? It's a negative 7. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. We're going to bring down that 3x. And a positive 7 minus 7 is 0, which is what you want to happen. We're not going to write down the 0. And 16 minus 7 is 9. So now we have 3x equals 9. Now we're going to deal with that 3. We're going to divide both sides by 3 because right now that is multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm not going to write down the 1, I'm just going to write down x. Equals 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So that's our answer, x equals 3. For our next one, we have 2x minus 9 equals 13. Again, draw your line down your equal sign if you need to. And we have 2x minus 9 all on the same side. So we're going to work it just like the last problem. We're not going to worry about that 2 yet because we don't worry about coefficients until after we've combined all of our constants. And since they're on different sides, we have to move that negative 9 to the other side. And the opposite of subtraction is addition. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. We're going to bring down that 2x. And a negative 9 plus 9 is 0. I'm not going to write that down because 0 doesn't help me at all anyway here. And then 13 plus 9 is 22. And then we're going to deal with that 2. So we've got 2x, or 2 times x, which means that the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by that 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Don't need the 1, it's extra information. So we've got x equals 22 divided by 2, which is 11. And then our next one, we have 2x plus 10 equals 7x. So we only have one constant, so we're going to leave that alone. But we have 2 variables. So we need to get those variables on the same side. Since we are leaving that 10x, or that 10 by itself, we're going to move that 2x. So What sign would normally be in front of the 2? Addition or subtraction? It'd be addition because there's not a sign there. So it's a positive 2 right now. So in order to move it to the other side, what would we have to do? We'd have to subtract 2x from both sides. Please make sure that you are actually writing subtracting 2x on both sides and not just subtracting 2. See, a number of mistakes happen when all you write down is the number and not the variable as well, because you are subtracting 2x from both sides, not just 2. So 2x minus 2 is 0. I'm not going to write that 0 down. Bring down the 10. And 7x minus 2x is 5x. And then we have 10 equals 5x. So 5x is multiplication. The opposite again of multiplication is division. And we are going to divide again by the coefficient, that number in front of x. So we're going to divide by 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we've got 1x or just x. Next up, we have negative 4x plus 24 equals 2x. Again, draw the line through your equal sign if you need to. Again, we have 2 variables and 1 constant. So we're going to leave that constant alone. That 24 is going to stay on the left-hand side. So we're going to move that 4x. And how are we going to move that 4x? We're going to add 4x to both sides because we have a negative 4x. And we need to do the opposite. We need to add. And negative 4x plus 4x is 0. Don't need to write that down. Plus 24. So bring down that positive 24. Equals 2x plus 4x, which is 6x. So we've got 24 equals 6x. So we have multiplication again. And what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So we're going to divide. And what are we going to divide by? We're going to divide by 6. And 24 divided by 6 is 4. 6 divided by 6 is 1, but we're going to bring down just x. So we have 4x for our answer on that one. Our next one, we have 2 times x plus 3 equals 30. Again, draw your line down the middle if you need. And we have parentheses here, which means we need to distribute. So 2 times x and 2 times a positive 3, because that sign goes with the three. Two times x is 2x. And 2 times a positive 3 is a positive 6. So 2x plus 6 equals 30. Because we're going to bring down what's on the right-hand side because it's not in the parentheses. It's on the other side of the equal sign. So now what this problem looks like one we've already done. 2x plus 6 equals 30. We need to subtract our constant. So subtracting 6 from both sides. We have 2x equaling 24. So 2x equals 24, that's multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 2. So x equals 12. Next one, again, we have parentheses, so we are going to distribute again, and even though we have a fraction in front. So fraction, because it's a 1 in the numerator, 1 on top, all that means is you're dividing by your denominator, the number on the bottom. So we have 1/3 times 6x minus 15 equals 3. Again, put your line down the equal sign if you need to. It's not something that you have to do. And 1/3 times 6x, or 6x divided by 3, which is 2x. And 1/3 times a negative 15, because remember that that negative sign goes with your 15. So 1/3 times negative 15 is negative 5, because it's the same as negative 15 divided by 3 equals 3. And again, now we have 2x minus 5 equals 3, something that we've seen something similar to before. So what's our next step going to be? We're going to add 5 to both the negative 5 and the 3. And we've got 2x to bring down, and negative 5 plus 5 is 0, so we're good. And 3 plus 5 is 8. And then we have 2x equals 8. So again, we have multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So 2x divided by 2, and 8 divided by 2. And 2 divided by 2, remember, is 1. So that leaves us with x. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Next up, we have 5 minus x minus 2 equals 3 plus 4x plus 5. Okay, so again, draw that line down the equal sign if you need to. And we have a number of things we need to do on this one. So we have an x on both sides of the equal sign, and we have several constants on both sides of the equal sign. First off, we want to get those constants grouped together. Remember that our constants here are this 5, okay, and that 5 does not include the negative behind it, it's just 5. And the negative 2, it does include that negative sign in front of it. And those are our constants on the left-hand side of the equal sign. And then our constants on the right-hand side of the equal sign are 3 and a positive 5. So we need to group those things together. So 5 minus 2, because what you do on one side, you do what it says. And since those are both on the same side, you do what it says. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and we bring down that negative x. And then on the right-hand side, we have 3 plus 5 that need to be combined into 8. And then we can bring down that positive 4x. So right now we have 3 minus x equals 8 plus 4x. So I need to look first at the coefficients with my variables. So we have a negative 1 here because we have no number in front of x, which means that the coefficient there is 1. So we have a negative 1, and we have a positive 4. Now my rule of thumb is that I always move to the side that's higher. So I'm going to move this negative 1x over here with this 4x. And remember, we have to do the opposite of what it says. So adding an x to both sides. So we have negative x plus x being 0. We'd have 4 plus 1x. If you need to put that one, go ahead. So 4x plus 1x is 5x, and that's a positive 5. So at this point, you can bring the 3 and the 8 down if you want, but because of my lack of space, I am going to go ahead and write out the next step. And so we have the 5x on the right now, which means that I need to move this 8 away from it, which means I have to move it to the left. And when we move things across the equal sign, we do the opposite. So this is a positive 8 right now because there is no sign in front of it. And when there is no sign, we know it's a positive. So that means the opposite of addition is subtraction. So we're going to subtract that 8 from both sides. And 3 minus 8 is a negative 5. And 8 minus 8 is 0. So again, now we have negative 5 equals 5x. And what's our next step? We're going to divide. And what are we dividing by? We're going to divide by 5. So negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. And it equals x, because 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we have 1x left. I don't need to put that 1 in front of x. And our last one. Again, we have variable on both sides, and we end up having constants on both sides. And we have parentheses, which means we need to distribute. So we need to distribute that too. So we have 3m minus 10 equals 2 times 4m, which is 8m, and 2 times negative 5, which is a negative 10. So just like the last one, I'm going to deal with my variables first. And which one's larger, the 3 or the 8? The 8's larger, so I'm going to move that 3 to the other side. And how am I going to move that 3? Addition or subtraction? I'm going to subtract. So you have negative 10 equals 5m minus 10. Okay, and then I need to move the constant that is with my variable, which is this negative 10 over here. So to move that negative 10, we're going to add 10 to both sides. Okay, and this one, negative 10 plus 10 is 0, and we have that 5m. And again, negative 10 plus 10 is 0. I know that for these, where it's the constant on the same side as the variable, I normally say not to write down the 0. But this one, it's constant that's not on the same side as the variable, so go ahead and write down that 0, because it's going to help you with the rest of the problem. And then we have 0 equals 5m, dividing by 5. And 0 divided by 5 is 0, so that means that m equals 0.